Welcome to our channel, Ask Clem Today, the best how-tos. In this video, we're going to show you some basic hand tools. If you watch this video all the way to the end, you're going to see some cool projects that you can do yourself by learning from this video. So we have a piece of wood. It's an angle wood for inside the house for a corner in order to protect it. So like that, we're going to use this miter box to cut it at a 90-degree angle. It'll mean a lot if you like this video if you can hit subscribe and hit the bell button so you can get the latest video, and also give me a thumbs up for like, and don't forget to give comments. Comments means a lot in this program, and if you'd like to ask any questions, please do so, and share the video with your friends and family. So we just measured and put a tick mark. We're just going to put it right there, and it makes it nice and square, a 90-degree angle. And then as we use our pencil, we mark it on both sides. Make sure you mark it on both sides, then you know that you have it correctly. And now we want to make sure that our wood is nice and level before we cut. So now I want to show you what this little yellow thing can do. It can cut at a 90-degree, like we're going to do today, at a 22.5, or at a 45-degree angle, especially if you're doing like picture frames. But this particular project, it's easy. It's going to be a 90-degree, so it's going to be a straight cut. So now that we have it level, you see that we lined up the line to exactly where we're going to cut it. Now these little black little doodads, we're going to go ahead and insert it. They're basically acting like a third hand for you to secure your project. And now what we're going to do is make sure that that miter box is secure. As you see how our saw went right into that slot. Oh yeah, let's not forget about safety. We got to make sure we have our gloves on, and I have my safety glasses on right there. Now if you have a sharp blade, it does not take a whole lot to put a lot of pressure into it. It's just going back and forth. So you can see how much I already cut. Before you know it, you have a nice straight cut. That piece is trash. Now, you have to make sure, what I'm going to be showing you here is that you barely see the mark. So it's ideal to leave a little bit of the mark, because it's always best to trim than to add. Now what's cool about this yellow miter box is that you can stow the saw all in one unit. Check it out how nice and compact it is, especially using those little black handles. It locks it right in place. It's actually offset, that's why you can do that. Alright, so what's coming next? Yes, power tools. I think all of you have been waiting for this. Here's a jigsaw. Now, not all jigsaws are the same. Now here what I'm showing this little handle is that where there's 3 settings. 1, 2, and it's 3, not 4. I get my finger straight here. There you go, it's 3. Yeah, so these settings, what they do is it kicks the blade out. Not only goes up and down, but look at the little arrow, the red arrow, how it goes up and down. That is just to kind of make it cut like butter, especially if you have a nice fresh blade. So now we're going to show you how to use the blue square. First of all, whenever you buy wood, make sure you buy extra. So if you need 8 feet, do not buy 8 feet, because always wood has little cracks to it. So right there I'm marking with the end of the crack, and I'm going to cut it out. So if you need 8 feet, then buy a 10-footer. If you need 10 feet, buy a 12-footer. Otherwise, you're going to have your ends splitting. So now I'm going to use my square as a guide to make sure that I'm nice and straight. Once I know where my blade is at, and remember, just put it where you see a little bit of the line, that square acts like a straight edge. Again, you don't have to push it hard. If you have a sharp blade, it'll cut like butter, depending on the wood, of course. If it's a hard wood, then it'll still cut, but it'll take some time. Now I just wanted to show you how straight it is before I cut the whole thing. You can see it's hard to tell, but there is a little bit of a black line on the side that I want to keep the wood, where it's the same side with my blue square is at. Notice my finger. My index fingers is pointing, so that kind of helps also to give direction. So I'll explain that more later. So you can see how nice and square it is. Now here's another piece of wood. Now we're going to show you the circular saw. Same concept. Now mine is corded. You can have battery operated. Now here what we want to show you is this guard that's down there. It's to protect you from cutting your fingers or your thighs. Some people like to use the cut on top of their feet, their legs, like that guy drilling on my other video. Now there's a little device here. You just saw that little lever. It's going to help you to bring the blade to cut less or more. So I'm going to show you how it's done. You take a 2x4 is what we're cutting. Actually it's a 2x6, but you can see the thickness. And so you don't want too much of that blade to show. So did you see how I use my fingers to push? I'm going to show you again. Let me do it in slow motion. So it's too much of a blade show. You only need about 1/4 of an inch. You don't need a whole lot. So notice how I take my right hand and use my thumb to push up a little bit right where I want it, and then I'm going to lock it in place. Too much blade will create too much friction. So you only want a little bit to stick out. Now watch. There's that little lever, and I'm going to squeeze it towards the plate, and that locks it from moving. I'll show you one more time so you can see it's just the right height. Now, like anything else, having a third hand is great, so that's where these clamps come along. You can clamp your piece of wood. Make sure your marking is off the table, so you don't want to cut your table. See, it's nice and secure. Now I can use my hand on that square for the guide. And you see that little notch on that drill? I'm sorry, on that saw? You can put it onto the right side of that opening. It kind of gives you a guide where that blade's going to cut. Here we go. And with the circular saw, you may want to use some earplugs. Don't push the saw. Let it cut. Let it do the job. Make sure the blade comes to a stop before you pull it out of the wood. If you have a nice sharp blade, it won't leave any burrs at the end of the wood. You know, those pieces of wood that hangs on the edge. All right, so I'm going to give you a little demonstrations about having the right size screw, because that's very important. So this one here, it's about 1.25 inches. So I got 2 pieces of wood together, emulating you screwing 2 pieces of wood of the same size. Now I want you to notice, if you put the 1.75 inches, now this is a 2x6, technically it's 1.5 inches. Don't know why they call it 2 by when it's not really a 2-inch. So you see there that it only goes 1.25 inches, so it really wouldn't even hold the 2 pieces of wood together. So now I'm going to show you here, this here is a 3-inch, super long, way too long. Actually is a 3.5 inch. So as you can see, when they put the screw in, the screw will be sticking out. So you really don't want that. Way too long. So now we're going to go with this, I believe it's what, 2 inches? 2 1/4? 2 1/2. 2 1/2 inches. Now 1 1/2 and 1 1/2, that's 3 inches total. So now we're going in at least halfway into the other wood. So that'll be perfect. So that's the size that we want. But now there's two types. You have one with the Phillips head and one with the square tip. For this demonstration, we're going to use the Phillips head, but normally the square tip I like using on other projects because it's not as easy to strip. Alright, so what we're going to do is demonstrate here and how to take two pieces of wood together. If you're building a fence, a box, perhaps you're building a chair or a table, you want to make sure that it's square. And that's where the blue square comes in handy. And as you can see, it's nice and square to the top. Now, another technique that we can use is take a piece of wood and then shove it to the side so it hit both pieces of wood to make sure that it's nice and even at the end. So now we know that that's where we want it. We're going to go ahead and put a mark on the square there so we won't lose our spot. Now that we have that, we're marking the top piece of wood to find out exactly where to drill our holes, where to put our screws. Now normally I like to put them on something like this, about 1 inch from the edge, 1 inch inside. So as you can see, I'm marking it. Again, so one of the reasons why we use the square is to make sure that we're nice and straight. Now, as a reminder, this square has markings for measuring tape on either side. So you can find your 1 inch, give it a tick mark, and then use the square to run the line. We have our 4 spots marked. Now we're going to go ahead and bring our drill. Again, this is a rigid drill, has different settings. So if you're going to look here, there you have a drill. In order to drill a hole, put a screw, or to use the hammer drill. So we don't want to use the hammer drill, so we just want to drill a hole. And then you have the speed. The speed is 1 or 2. I have it setting on 2. So it's going to go a little fast. Now these are our drill bits we talked about in the other video. So these are drill bits for wood. I'm using the smaller one, the 1/8. Now remember, here's where we put it with the chuck. We grab the chuck. See how we spin it? You don't have to have a chuck key anymore. So I'm just going to go slowly. Check how I do it. Real slow. One finger grabs the bit, the other one grabs the chuck, and now I'm ratcheting it down. So now what we want to do is, see, it's deep enough to go all the way through on the first plank. So remember, this particular drill bit has a special tip that can hit right where your marking is at. So I'm going to drill the first one, then I'll show you what I'm talking about. Find my mark where it's X'd out. And that little tip just dug in right in the cross section. Making sure that I don't drill the piece underneath. Now check this out. See that little tip on that drill bit? It just kind of sticks it right in place. Then I'm able to drill. Now remember, this is only for wood. Don't use this on concrete or metal. This is only for wood. Now you notice that finger I got, my index finger? It's not on the trigger, it's actually on the side. That index finger is helping me to direct my drill to be straight up and down. It feels awkward at the beginning, but trust me, that finger helps a lot to direct your drill to make sure that it's level. I've used this technique for 39 years. In aviation is where I learned it, because we had to be exact. All right, so now we have 4 holes. We're going to take that bit back out. It's as easy as turning the chuck. And make sure that you put that bit right back where it belongs so you can find it next time you're going to use it. Because otherwise, you put it someplace else, you'll never find it. Now we're going to use the impact driver. Now the impact driver, we showed you before in the other video. It's real easy. Just pull the collar out and that thing just snaps right in. That's the driver right there. I have the extension on this. I could use it just a bit, but I figured it'll be easier in order for the video to show what I'm doing. There might be times I might be blocking the video, so I'm sorry for that. Now, the best thing to do is, now that you drill a hole, we can go ahead and insert the screws. Now, the reason why we drill holes, there's a couple of reasons. One, it helps from the wood splitting. In particular, if you're going to be putting a screw too close to the edge. So if you have to drill about a ½ inch from the edge, then a pilot hole is what they call it, is ideal. Now here we're putting the screws in. Now we don't want it sticking out. See, it's stuck out a little bit, so now I'm backing up so it'll be flush. Now that's ideal as recommended to drill a pilot hole, especially if the wood is sensitive to cracking, or if it's too thin or it's too close to the edge. So remember that. That's going to help a lot. So now we have all the 4 screws in, so it's going to make life so much easier. It's a little cheat sheet that you can do. So now we want to use the square to line up the piece of wood. Make sure it's flush at one end, so you can use that block of wood to make sure it doesn't go any further. Now just go ahead and put 1 screw in. Now that you have 1 screw in, now you can make sure that you can line it up according to the square. So now I have 2 screws in. Now that thing is not going to move anywhere. And so what I do is I just keep pressing the trigger until it goes all the way flush. Now you could have it so it goes into the wood. So it's up to you. You can go where it's flush or just a little bit lower and then fill it in, depending on what kind of project you're doing. Now the good thing is those screws did not go through the other side. Now I am going to show you what happens if you don't pre-drill. So let's look at that. So you can see how nice and flush it is. Actually, that corner one is a little bit deep, but that's fine. If you want to go a little deeper, you pull the screw back out, push the wood together, and then drive them in a little deeper. But you don't want to go deeper when you're flush, because sometimes you can strip your screw that way. All right, so let me show you when we put a screw in without pre-drilling. If you have an impact driver, it's pretty easy. But what happened here, it left a little piece of wood sticking out where you have to like shave it off or pull it off, and sometimes that happens. And there's other times that it don't, but see right there, it ain't gonna crack. So you can actually do it without pre-drilling. So I gave you an option. The nice way is to pre-drill is a little bit more time, but your work will come out so much nicer. So now we're going to show you what happens when you put a 3.5 inch screw into 3 inches of wood. So 1.5 is 3 inches. So this is a no-no. So the screw goes all the way in, right? You think it looks nice, but wait until you turn it on the other side, and what a dangerous situation that can be. See that little tip sticking out? That little tip can tear you up real bad. So we definitely don't want, we want the right screw for the right thickness of the job. So now we want to show you some ways and how to put a screw in to wood. Now notice I removed the extension. I got two hands on the impact driver, forcing it on top, making sure I'm solid and straight and pushing it down. So it goes in pretty smooth, doesn't it? Now let's go ahead and put another one in, and I'm not going to use my other hand on the top. I'm just going to use one hand. First of all, you see how unstable it is? So now you got her in, but now this what could happen if you're not holding your impact driver level, like in an angle. All of a sudden you're going to be stripping your screw and stripping the tip, which will make that tip no good. So you have to be straight up and down. So using your hand as leverage will be very helpful. Now we're going to put another screw here, and just pay attention to the angle. You need to make sure you're perpendicular. You see that angle? That angle's no good. You have to be perpendicular to your project. You'll see a great improvement in putting screws in. So I hope this is a learning lesson for everybody and you all enjoyed. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, to press like, and give us comments. If you want to see a certain project in the future, put it in the comments. Now these are some of the projects that you can do with what you've learned. Check this out. This is a friend of mine that built this for his kids, and I taught him. He worked with me in doing pergolas, and this is what he did on his own. Now this is another project that I understand that one of you might be interested in doing. You can easily do this. It's very simple, straight cuts. Or this. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and hopefully you guys can share some of the photos that you did with some of your projects. Have a great day.